this is the Honourable Katrina Stratton's inaugural speech, and the usual courtesies of the House apply. The Honourable Katrina Stratton.
Thank you, President. And let me first offer my congratulations on your election again as President of this place. I, of course, already know you to be a warm and wise colleague and mentor, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you. And I congratulate all of my parliamentary colleagues who have been sworn in today, particularly those sworn in for the first time. And what an honour it is to stand with what is indeed a rare opportunity, that of a second inaugural speech. And it's always an honour to be on Wajak Noongar Budja and pay my respects to elders past and present as we continue the path to genuine reconciliation. In my inaugural speech to the Legislative Assembly, I told a little of my story, of what brought me to politics and the women on whose shoulders I stand. And I want to acknowledge some of those women in the gallery today. The Honourable Kay Hallahan AO, the first West Australian woman to sit in both the Legislative Council and Legislative Assembly, serving as Minister in 3 Labor governments, and perhaps most beloved to me, a fellow social worker. I welcome too the Honourable Cheryl Davenport. It was her private member's bill in 1998 decriminalising abortion which laid the groundwork for the abortion law reform that the Cook Labor government delivered in the last term. Legislation that I was very proud to speak in full support of for its treatment of reproductive care as the health care that it is. It means that we can get out of the way while health professionals are able to freely and expertly respond to women's reproductive choices. I welcome too Christine Tonkin, the former member for Churchlands, and I'm going to talk shortly about the very important and powerful inquiry that we were both involved in the last term. And of course, the Honourable Dr. Sally Talbot, whose claim to be a former member isn't even 24 hours old yet, and I will come back to Sally. It was a privilege to serve as the first Labor member for Nedlands in the last term, and there was much that I was proud of having achieved in that role in the community that I grew up in and the place where I continued to raise my own children, Catherine and Oliver. I was proud of being able to support public schools, including Shenton College, of which both my children are or will be alumni, and Bob Hawke College. The leadership at both those schools have meant that they are highly regarded for their educational experiences, their outcomes, and perhaps most importantly, their culture. Shenton College is the reason that we moved to Nedlands 15 years ago. I know both of those schools to be places that value diversity, that strive for inclusivity, creating safe spaces for students of all abilities and all identities, who are as proud of their VET students as they are of their ATAR students, and encourage students to be their best, to be more than their marks. And can I just note that there are 4 of us in this chamber who are Hollywood Senior High School alumni, and it's a very special honour to welcome Chris Hill, who was the politics teacher for myself in Year 12, as well as for the Honourable Stephen Dawson. That there are 4 of us here from such a magnificent public school is surely a testament to the way public education does instil values in its students and their communities. Values of service, of an appreciation for diversity, of critical thinking, of independence, and of a willingness and a capacity to stand up and have your voice heard. But not just to have your voice heard, but more so to use that voice in service of the community and of the planet. Another proud achievement was saving the Mount Claremont playing fields, protected now as green playing space, with the hard-working and dedicated friends of Mount Claremont Fields. Your thank you card takes pride of place on my desk and will continue to do so. I'm also proud to have been part of the working group progressing WA's first urban greening strategy for the Perth and Peel regions, protecting and enhancing our tree canopy and more. And there will be much more to say on that later this year. My team and I created a strong learning space in the electorate office. You can never take the educator out of the MP. We hosted McCusker interns, social work students, parliamentary research program participants, and many local high school interns. and I want to thank my team for their contribution to all those students learning. I particularly want to thank Trina Bunkle, who also joins us in the gallery today, for so ably supporting and challenging the social work students and encouraging them to think of the different ways that we can be involved in political life and social activism. There are, in fact, 3 social workers serving in the Cook Labor government. Another highlight was collaborating with researchers, policy experts and menopause practitioners on continuing to put menopause on the policy and the research agenda, another neglected area of women's health and bodily autonomy. That work was inspired by a project completed with the Parliamentary Research Program, and I encourage all of my colleagues to engage with this magnificent program. Student Basira Khan took my proposal for a project exploring the impact of menopause in the workplace and advocated instead to consider the cross-cultural experiences of menopause. Her work invited further conversations, and so together with Claire Feenan and Paul McGinn from the UWA Public Policy Institute, with Grace Malloy from Menopause Friendly Australia, and UWA academics and advocates Danny Barrington and Antonia Hendrick, we collaborated on a policy brief and an event, Menopause Matters. In that brief, we evidenced 10 policy calls to action to provide better education, understanding, workplace responsiveness, care and care accessibility to menopausal people. I look forward to that ongoing collaboration and continuing to grow a thriving network of people concerned with progressing change in this area of women's health. In the last term, alongside with Christine Tonkin, the former member for Churchlands, I was a member of the Community Development and Justice Committee. We held an inquiry into how Western Australia had responded to the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse, work that I was familiar with having served on the board of Chewett Place, a small but extremely mighty not-for-profit organisation that works with survivors, former child migrants and care leavers. As part of that inquiry, we spoke to many survivors and survivor support and advocacy organisations. And while acknowledging again their bravery in sharing with us their story, I want to say to you that we will go beyond sharing your story, that I, alongside other members of that committee, including the Honourable Dave Kelly in the other place, will continue to honour your stories by actively working towards the fulfilment of the recommendations from that inquiry. And I express again my disappointment, but sadly perhaps not my surprise, at the decision of the Christian Brothers to refuse to appear at the inquiry. We are not the only ones to encounter their wall of silence, their moral failure in trying to hide information on the abuse of children under their care and hide, therefore, from their responsibilities to those children, to those survivors. The Royal Commission had identified the Christian Brothers as among the worst offenders. Their continual obstruction of dialogue and justice is an affront to survivors and all of us who walk alongside them in the ongoing pursuit for justice. Unfortunately, the Christian Brothers were not lonely in prioritising their institutional well-being over the well-being of children abused in their care. There are too many walls of silence, too many stories of justice unmet. And as we come to legislation in this place that is about the rights of people to live and love freely, to create families, and to live with dignity as who they are, I hope it is free of the unkindness, the lack of justice, the hypocrisy that I witnessed from the religious institutions in that inquiry. But perhaps one of the things I'm most proud of is standing up for the values of my Nedlands community, a community that I know to be kind, compassionate and generous, because they were all of those things to us when it mattered. This is also a community that, when the City of Nedlands said no to a children's hospice, came to me distressed and disturbed as to how it was that we were being represented. More so, they were distressed and disturbed that families of children with a life-limiting illness were being told, "You are not welcome here." The reasons articulated for knocking back first the hospice and now the adjacent playground are as bizarre as they are unkind, and they are anything but astute, rather lacking in an understanding of evidence-based practice. So variously, the hospice is apparently at risk of being bombed by a hostile foreign power, of being turned into a licensed premise, and in a deliberate misunderstanding of the purpose of a hospice, a claim that many of the children would dare not actually die in the facility. More recently, we have heard council leaders question the ethics and generosity of donors, a suggestion there is something to be gained from their donation, something other than apparently kindness and compassion. The hospice is under construction in Allen Park, Oceanside, as is best practice for hospice care. The PCH Foundation, who have diligently planned the hospice for WA children, including concerted fundraising efforts, stakeholder engagement and drawing on best evidence, are now offering a comprehensive playground and nature area adjacent to the hospice. This area would be for use by the entire West Australian community. And this is, of course, a core reason for reserve tenure to be applied to land, intrinsic community value. But the council has said no to this also. The council leaders make much mention of the area being a Class A reserve, yet have treated it with nothing but contempt and neglect. It is literally a dust bowl. They have since treated the families of sick and dying children with the same contempt, wanting to deny them access to best practice care and deny the WA community of an accessible playground at home in its natural surrounds. I do want to state very clearly that there are a number of councillors who have stood against these decisions, and I thank them for the difficult fight that they have taken on. Hundreds of locals signed my open letter in support of the hospice, and some of the personal comments were simply heartbreaking. Memories that are decades old of siblings lost and the enduring intergenerational impact of that loss on a family. More recent memories of deaths in sterile, albeit caring and compassionate hospital settings, not of the family's choosing. Of not being able to gather and celebrate life and mourn loss as a family. I have been a social worker for 30 years and those stories still had the power to move me. It's also true that in that 30 years, I have seen many of the awful things that human beings are capable of doing to each other, and this act by the council's leadership I put up there. So to those families and to the people of Nedlands, I commit to continue to stand up for our shared values and to stand in solidarity with families as they are enduring the very worst and say you are welcome in our neighbourhood. I want to continue on the theme of kindness and inclusivity. As a social worker, as I said, I have borne witness to the human impact of systems that are inaccessible, that are unjust, of service responses that are economically rather than human-based, that are essentially unkind. This Saturday, the 17th of May, was Ida Hobbit Day, the International Day Against LGBTQIA+ discrimination. Discrimination that we see on the rise on the global political stage, where people use their words and power deliberately to punch down. The day celebrates the removal of homosexuality from the WHO classification of diseases, a change which occurred the year I finished high school. Marriage equality was finally achieved during my children's school years. And I was asked once if my children were proud that I was part of the generation that voted yes for marriage equality. And I said, actually, my kids were surprised that it hadn't always been so. In fact, many of the positive progressive changes for the LGBTQIA+ community have happened only in recent times, and there is still much to do, as indicated by the fact we have some key reforms on the agenda in this coming term of government. And it's always and only been a Labor government that has legislated and led justice for the LGBTQIA+ community. And as I stated before, as we consider those reforms in this term, I would hope that the principles of kindness and fairness, of human dignity, will be the manner in which we proceed with that legislation. So in reflecting on my time as the member of Nedlands, I hope it gives you a sense of what I wish to bring to this chamber. a keen interest in what research says as well as what communities say about the things that are important to them, the values of fairness and equity, particularly issues of gender equity, and an endeavour to always be kind. I have many people to thank and acknowledge for the opportunity of standing here, beginning with the Australian Labor Party. All of us elected to this place have that privilege because of the amazing teamwork of our committed branch members, our volunteers, our campaigners, our supporters, the mighty union movement and our party's leadership team. And of course, we all bring our own personal cheerleading squads. So to the Nedlands Labor branch, we grew from an initial meeting in 2021 of 25 people to now having over 80 members. I want to make some individual thank yous, and I'm going to just use first names here as I am mindful that people have other lives and identities. So can I thank our inaugural executive team of that branch, Renee, Oliver, Francesca, Henry and Peter, and the extraordinary volunteers who over the last 4 years made such a difference to our community's experience of an active local member. So to Leonie, Jules, Gwen, Sue, Elaine, Matthew, Steve, Jeremy, Neva, Peter, Rick, Henry, Pauline, Viv, Rob and Wendy. Thank you for all the poster rolling, the envelope stuffing, the phone calling, the letterboxing, the real glamour work, the coffee morning hosting, the news scanning and the door knocking that you did for the people of Nedlands. I am especially proud of the effort that we made during the Voice campaign. And while we all know that that outcome was not what we had worked for, we all remain proud to live in a community that did indeed vote yes, a community that continues to work actively for reconciliation. I joined the Labor Party after completing research at Wansley, a West Australian not-for-profit organisation where I was the manager for research and evaluation. And that research was about the impact of the caring role on grandparents who are raising their grandchildren full-time. And that research showed that every aspect of a grandparent's health, social, physical, financial, mental and emotional, is impacted by their caring role. That research also told us that grandparents take on that role with much love and pride, knowing they are keeping their grandchildren safe and secure. It was as I formulated with others the recommendations from that research that it stood out to me that real change could only ever come through government action. And that for people who are experiencing vulnerability, where issues of equity and access and of injustice prevail, change would only ever come about through a Labor government. Given that the average grandparent carer is a single woman over the age of 65 and with less than $4,000 in their superannuation, I imagine that Perth Labor women might be the right branch for me to land in, and indeed it was. They picked up and continued to progress the needs of grandparent carers as a policy issue. Perth Labor women also provided support and structure to participate in party life, to speak up in party forums on policy issues and to take leadership roles in party structures. Helen Tuck, who's in the gallery today, I want to acknowledge your leadership in creating those opportunities, and I shall be forever grateful. I would also like to thank Emily's List for their early support in my fundraising efforts for Nedlands in 2021, at that time considered an unwinnable seat for us, and for the ongoing collaboration and championing of female candidates and members. I am proud to be a member of a party that has long committed to affirmative action, that doesn't have to consider in 2025 how to address a woman problem. It was wonderful then to bear witness and vote for our first all-female leadership team for WA Labor. And to the Honourable Lauren Cayune and Senator-elect Ellie Whittaker, I look forward to working with you in different ways, both strong, intelligent, engaged and articulate women. And of course, many congratulations to our Premier Roger Cook. It's your determined and thoughtful leadership is exactly why West Australians entrusted you with our wellbeing and prosperity. And so now I have a number of personal thank yous. To Lynn Sherwood, first of all, happy birthday. It's a reasonable reason not to be here. And my birthday wish is that you know what your guidance and faith has meant to me. You've helped me stay true to my values and integrity, reminding me of what I came here to do and who I am while I am doing it. To Michael and Jenny for a different kind of question time. And Jenny, I can't wait to celebrate your coming transition after decades of service to the children and families of Western Australia at PMH and PCH. Here's to more travel adventures, although I think we agree that the Cape to Cape was a one-off. To Denise, from the back steps of Armidale Child Protection, we've travelled many of life's ages and stages together. And despite our different ways of engaging with politics, I do know that you're always my cheerleader. Thank you for your enduring love and humour and for keeping Steve alive for us in safe and loving ways. To Carly and Samantha, two women who have shared the same but different journey of widowhood together with me. I most certainly wouldn't be standing anywhere without your friendship, your guidance, your faith. And to Dr. Bailey, let's have more of those ocean swims and solve the problems of humanity and the planet while we float and laugh together. I want to give a special shout out to two of my parliamentary colleagues, two great friends. And I do appreciate the risk in singling out just two. But in the Labor caucus, there are just so many of us to choose from. So to the member for Coburn, David Scaife, and the Honourable Dan Caddy, you have both taught me so much about navigating the political world and this political life. I've appreciated your counsel, your wisdom, your humour, your status as critical friends, the at times honest but always helpful feedback and the learning. It's an absolute joy to serve with you both. And to my team members, Francesca, the OG, who was my first meeting after my election in 2021. I knew that I wanted to have this intelligent, energetic, warm and innovative young woman on my team, but I also knew it would never be for very long. I'm so proud, Fran, of all you are achieving working in the Victorian Labor government and charging your own path. Do not let anyone take that away from you. And to the team of the last few years, Louise Knox, Bronwyn English, Adam Gilbride and Jules Hutchison, I will never forget the fun and camaraderie alongside the hard work and community engagement that we enjoyed together. You have all, in your way, been an absolute gift to me. Jules and Bronwyn, I wish you all the very best in your next adventures in our movement. And Adam and Lou, I'm so happy you're coming on this next adventure with me. And Sam, welcome to the crew. I have to say, you had me at homemade sausage rolls. Now, when my son turned 21, just last year, I asked friends and family to provide a list of what they wish they had known at his age about money. And I compiled that advice into a book. There was lots, as you can imagine, about starting early and the magic of compound interest. There was even a suggestion of building a time machine and getting into the property market in the 1990s. There was also excellent advice about being good to your mother. But Michael Berry, you provided the standout piece of advice that things have only ever improved for workers through the collective action of the union movement. Join your union. I have been a union member my entire working life. And as a middle-aged woman, I in fact look like your average union member, despite what the stereotypes might tell you. So variously to the Health Services Union of WA, the CPSU, CSA, the NTEU, and now the AMWU, I say thank you. Some have helped me individually, but all have helped collectively, both workers, workforces and communities alike. It is the union movement that has made great strides for gender equity, securing improvements in narrowing the gender pay gap, greater parental leave entitlements, which in turn support women's economic participation, ensuring equal pay for work of equal value, securing better rights for women in traditionally feminised sectors such as early childhood education and aged care, advocacy for flexible work, enshrining paid family and domestic violence leave in the national employment standards, securing reproductive leave, including for people experiencing pregnancy loss, outlawing pay secrecy clauses and a new positive duty for employers to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. And when unions work with different workforces, it is with the community in mind. So when the CPSU worked with us in the 1990s, and it is an ongoing challenge, to develop caseload models, that was so vulnerable children in the care system could receive due time and attention from their child protection worker. And when the NTEU negotiated for us during COVID-19, when the federal Liberal government decided an educated Australia was not valued, it was to ensure that students continued to receive the educational support they had enrolled for, and that the people they would ultimately serve could be assured that they were appropriately qualified. And when the AMWU, alongside many other unions, worked towards a just transition in Collie as we move from coal to renewables, it's so the community of Collie Preston, the workforce, our energy system and our environment not just survive but thrive. I do owe a particular debt of gratitude to the AMWU, not just for this opportunity, but for the opportunity and the active support to pursue issues of social justice and equity. And I want to say a particular thank you in that regards to State Secretary Steve McCartney. It was not long after being elected in 2021 that I sat down with Steve and we talked about what had motivated me to enter politics, and I talked, and I'll tell you now, I talk about them a lot, about grandparent carers. And when I talk about grandparent carers, people often assume that I'm talking about grandparents who are babysitting. And that is, of course, a very, very valuable role and one that I couldn't have survived without. But Steve knew exactly what and who I was talking about. We discussed some ideas about how to progress their cause, and I'm pleased that we have made some progress. Steve's innate sense of fairness, and more importantly, the drive to take action towards what is right, means there's never been a policy issue that he's afraid of or would back away from as being too hard or too messy. In 2021, when I gave my first inaugural speech, we were allowed 20 people in the gallery due to COVID restrictions. There are 2 people missing from the public gallery today from that original group, and I want to acknowledge them. And this is the hard part, the part that I haven't even been able to say in my head without tears. But grief is a normal part of life. And as the tragic events of this last weekend have perhaps showed us, not only do we have to have a better and a different conversation about men's mental health, but I think we probably should be more open about how we do grief in all of its messiness and all of its enduring pain. So to my dear friend, Katie Bennell, I miss you every day. There was an immediate recognition between the two of us before we even shared our stories. We were both missing a Stephen. It is because of you, Katie, that Aboriginal grandparent carers had such a prominent and meaningful voice in our research, that we're able to talk about and advocate for the unique experiences and needs of Aboriginal families. You are the most patient and generous and respectful teacher about Aboriginal culture and kinship ways, with that big, beautiful heart. Red velvet cake will never taste the same. In August 2023, my mother-in-law passed away, and we had also spent 10 years together missing our Stephen. And later in 2023, along with some dear friends, including Pauline and Denise, who are upstairs today, I went through the process of sorting out whose house for sale. And I really understood that your home tells a story of who you are. And who Joan was, first and foremost, was a beloved granny. Of course, she had photos of our Oliver and Kate everywhere. That she loved them dearly was beyond doubt. But it's the love notes that they wrote for her, the handmade gifts, the bedrooms used weekly for sleepovers, even well into their teens. The years of worksheets from playing schools, she had kept every one. The homemade cards and drawings that told her why they loved her. They all told a great love story. When someone has the job of sorting out my house, of course they will understand that I dress from the shoes up and that I buy books at a much faster rate than I can ever hope to read them. But I hope that it also tells a story of being as loved as Granny Joan was. She was a woman of immense kindness, generosity and humour, and we will always miss her. Both she and my mum and dad, Jenny and Richard, who are upstairs today, have played such an active and loving role in the lives of my kids. They did before I became a sole parent, but even more so afterwards. And again, I wouldn't be standing here today if they weren't just in my village, but they are my village. But Joan, as does Steve, live on in the two young people who loved her so dearly. And Kate's wicked sense of humour, her affectionate and loving ways, and the courage to beat her own path. And in Oliver's kindness, his generosity, and that amazing imagination and creativity. And when I think of the changes the last 4 years have brought to our lives, and I wonder if from here we'll kind of note our lives in parliamentary terms, not just the losses but the adventures too, I think about what the next 4 years will bring for the both of you. Oliver will graduate university, Kate's school in TAFE. We already have plans to visit some new and some old places. Perhaps you will fall in love. Maybe you will move out. And if you do, you'll probably move back in again. I can't wait to see who and what you continue to become in the world. And always know that wherever I am and whatever I am doing, I am always busy loving you. And finally, can I pay homage to the woman who just on Tuesday gave a stunning valedictory? There are too many of us to count in the Labor movement who owe a debt of gratitude to Sally, as do many people and communities in Western Australia. She has shown us what it means to be an activist who is intelligent and fierce, warm and strategic, someone of great integrity who gathers people to the cause, always with a steely eye to doing the next right thing. So if you're here on Tuesday, you perhaps heard her say that I had the good fortune to meet two key criteria to follow her into this place: a PhD and veins that, if tapped, would bleed tea. Milk in first, of course. Sally also wove poetry into her final offering to this place, and so I too will finish my contribution with a few lines from my favourite poem. Sally's poetry choice was about being an activist, and mine is too, but in a different kind of way. It's about an enduring quality all activists need, especially when we are struggling against a dark tide, and a quality those of us who walk with grief must always hold. And so I leave you with Emily Dickinson's words. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. If they want to, but most of them will want to just fly out the door. They probably won't start.